What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So I got another action figure review. This time it's on Tekkaman Blade from Evolution Toy. And so this is my first kind of review with Evolution Toy. I've never really heard of them. I saw that they were making a Tekkaman Blade action figure, and of course I had to jump on it. I missed out many years ago. Figma made a Tekkaman Blade action figure, and then ever since then I have not seen any toy companies make one. And so I had one. It was kind of like a model kit, and it was my very first model kit. It didn't turn out that great. It was like really ugly. So I'm really excited to actually get the figure, and to actually have the action figure. And if you guys don't know, this was like a early 90s anime cartoon series that aired here in the United States. The original series was like aired in the 70s or 80s in Japan. Very different from what we have here, and it was a little wacky, and it was a little different. And then of course they revised it, and then this is what we had in the 90s. I mean, in the 90s there were so many good cartoon series out there. So I mean, this was one of them, and this is kind of like what kind of pulled me into more of the anime, getting into Dragon Ball and so forth. And I think they made a couple of series. I think there was 2 series, and then later on in the early 2000s they had another kind of like revised of it, and it was okay. But the early 90s was kind of like, for me, was the best series out there. And of course, Tekkaman was like, so he's pretty much a guy that got abducted by these aliens. This obviously takes place in the future. And these aliens have the technology to use these crystals. So there's the outline of this crystal, and they would use that to morph into these robots, these fighting robots. And it was really cool. He had all kinds of special attacks and everything like that. So here's the front of the box. The side, there's not really too much. It says Tekkaman Blade. And then on the back here, you got different poses of Blade. And one thing, he had these huge shoulders, but they were kind of like these finishing moves. He had like these 2 dual blasters, and it was kind of like his unique finishing move when he was fighting anybody, whatever. And then of course he has his double-sided kind of staff there, blades. So really cool figure. And of course, there's obviously bad guys and everything like that, which is kind of interesting because they were all like family members. So it was kind of like a whole family member, like the Robinsons, but they're pretty much got all abducted by these aliens, and they were all conformed or transformed into these robotic fighting machines, whatever, kind of like a Power Ranger or whatnot. But here it is. So I'm really excited. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen anybody make a Tekkaman Blade action figure. So I'm and like I said again, this is my first time with this toy company, Evolution Toys. So hopefully it's really good. I got some good vibes about this one. So let's go ahead, take this guy out of the box, and check out this figure. Alright guys, so there he is out of the box. And okay, so I got some cons and pros about it. The pros, definitely aesthetically it looks amazing. They definitely captured Tekkaman Blade with this figure. And of course this is kind of like a mini figure, so this is kind of like I mean, here's the size of my hand, so this is definitely under 5 inches right there. And but the cons of it is that it's the ears, the little ears here. You do have to take them off like a little plastic tree, and then snap them on, and they don't snap on that well. So it's something, maybe it's not like a deal breaker, but it's definitely something that I would have to paint on, or not paint, but glue on there, just because they are easily removed. And so you can see right there, there's a gap. So even though I could apply pressure to push them in, they still kind of come out and stuff like that. So it's definitely not something that you're gonna want to play with all the time. It is more of like a display piece. It's very light, that's for sure. But here's the back end, and like I said, I think it's really done nicely. They did capture a lot. Now there are 2 peg holes that you can see right there, and that's for his shield. So either you could have the shield right on his arm, it's just the way I have it displayed, or you could just take it off there and then plug it into the back there. But I think overall it's really cool. So there's his dual blades there, and then of course, you know, you could lift up the shoulder pads to expose those blasters, and I think the blasters look really good. It's not painted on, it's like a translucent plastic, so it gives it like a little bit more depth into it. So I think that looks really cool. And then of course there's the bottom or the top of the shoulder pads, so not really too much going on there, but I think it's really good. Now you do get a lot of accessories. That's one good thing. So you do get a lot of interchangeable hands, and then if you wanted to, because his weapon was able to, you know, come apart, and so he would have two single, you know, blades, and so here are the kind of like the holding part of those blades. So you could use these, so he could have two of them just holding them on each hand, or there's one that has two pegs, so you could peg them together and just make one long staff. But for the hands, you do get pretty much, you have kind of, you know, you get a set of these closed fists right here where you're not really able to put anything in through them, so they're just a closed fist. And then you do get two sets of these right here which are open, so you could put that staff right in there, so that's kind of cool. And then you do get, of course, you get two sets of hands that are just kind of like, you know, fingers closed but the palms are open, so you get those hands right there. And then you do get a more kind of opened hand expression there, so the fingers are a little bit spread apart, so there's another one. And then lastly, you get these two fingers, which I'm guessing those are kind of like, you know, if you want to put them like in a dynamic pose or whatever, just, you know, having these two fingers, or he's pointing at somebody or whatnot. But those are all the sets of the accessories. And of course you do get a booklet, and you know, it's a good thing they have really detailed pictures on what to put where, because I don't, you know, I don't know Japanese, so I don't know what it's saying. But overall, I mean, I think it looks really cool. Articulation of this figure, I mean, the shoulder pads don't hinder the movement because they kind of have like their own little swivel on top of the shoulder, so that's kind of cool. So he does have a swivel kind of at the upper bicep, and then of course at the elbow he's got one joint. Not really too much at the wrist, they just kind of rotate around, and that's all you get. Of course the head, you know, he rotates, and then somewhat he could look down, but he can't really look too up. That's the highest point right there of looking up. So for the chest part, he does not have an ab crunch, so he can't do a crunch, and doesn't really rotate, so he's just kind of like stuck at that position. He doesn't really rotate side to side. It's like on the peg but not really on the peg. Of course, you know, you do have a joint up there at the inner thigh, and then he does have one joint at the knee, so you can do that with the knees. And then of course not really too much movement down at the foot. They're kind of just really, they just kind of go down a little bit, but that's it. And then they just stay kind of flat. But yeah, not really too much at the chest part. So that's pretty much all the articulation. Like I said, this is not really something that you're going to be posing too much or get a crazy dynamic pose with. It's more of like a display piece, you know. And like I said, it's something I probably would not mess with too much, just because, you know, as you can see, like, look how tiny those little pegs are. So you got to be very careful, and they go in easily. They're not hard to put in, but definitely it's a cool piece. Aesthetically it looks really nice, but it's not something, it's not an action figure that you're gonna get these crazy poses if you're trying to do, you know, photography with or anything like that. And it's definitely not something to play with, because you're probably gonna end up breaking some of the joints or not. So, but that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you guys that you know, this literally came in. Like I said, I've been waiting for a Tekkaman blade, and I think this is great, a great piece right there. It's got some pros and cons, but overall it's not too bad. So if you guys looking for one, there it is. And that's pretty much. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you in the next video.